three of us. I'm Marty Fink, this is David Carney, this is Alex Uhas. We were part of a larger roundtable, including some really important people in queer media studies, who are actually also filmmakers and activists, all got together and made a proposal for SCMS to have a conversation, and the central theme of the conversation was, why aren't we talking about HIV/AIDS media anymore? Why do we talk a lot about things that happened in the past? Why do we talk less about HIV/AIDS representation that's going on in new media, in the present, with youth culture? Why is this a thing of the past? Why don't people care? And we did the proposal, we sent it to SCMS, forgot about it, got excited to come to Chicago, and then we got this email saying your proposal was rejected. And it was kind of funny in a certain sense because that really proved our thesis. People don't care about AIDS media, your proposal was rejected. And the first thing that we thought was, we should do it anyway. This isn't just a regular panel, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. We'll have these conversations elsewhere. This is a place where we really wanted to have this conversation, and where we felt like it really needed to have this conversation. And so we're each going to talk a bit about different aspects of why that's important to us and why we're doing it here. There's also some art here. It's a giant crocheted pink triangle by Johnny Forever. And if you're interested in acquiring the piece afterwards, you can talk to me about it. So without further ado, we're going to start with Alex, who's going to talk for about 5 or 10 minutes. Then David will talk, then I'll talk. If anyone else would like to talk, there's a slot for you of 5 minutes. And otherwise we'll have an informal conversation until noon. And at noon, if we want, we can break up into little groups of 2 and make little videos that we can then put on the Tumblr page. So that's the schedule.
And we know people have to leave. Do not feel bad about leaving. It's very informal. This is the kind of panel part, but there's a lot of time for conversation together. Yeah. Why don't we all say who you are? Because I know most of you might not know each other.
Hi, I'm Matthew Clark. I'm here as a reporter for the Windy City Times and Gay News here in New York City.
And a try.
I'm Chris Zibana from Berlin, Germany, and have my coffee at
I'm Harry Benschop. I'm at the University of North Texas now.
I'm Christopher Ryan.
Eric Jen Malkowski at Smith College.
Alex Keller, Smith College. Renee King, Vermont College.
Camera guy.
Kyle Stein, Iowa.
Hi, thanks for coming. When we put together this workshop as a proposal for SCMS, which also included Beach Nugash, Greg Mordowitz, and Tom Law as panelists, I had planned to speak about the deluge of contemporary documentary about AIDS history, made primarily by my generation looking back at ourselves. We Were Here, How to Survive a Plague, United in Anger, Sex and an Epidemic, Veto, and others. But I can't. Instead, I will read from an adapted version of a public talk I gave at UCLA in 2008 for the 8-part Stop AIDS show. There, I had been asked to talk about the AIDS video in that show in relation to the larger history of AIDS video, a topic and practice I've specialized in since the mid-1980s. But then, the curator censored the work of art commissioned for the show by a South African gay mixed-race artist named Brenton Mark. I had to acknowledge that censorship rather than either being a good academic or a polite guest. I have chosen to do the same here. Now, in this case, to be very clear, we weren't censored. We weren't chosen to give a workshop and then pulled out after the impermissible qualities of our work about AIDS showed themselves. However, we were silenced before the fact, which demanded that we act. And so we created this sideshow. Now, before I perform my part and read from a repurposed version of my previous angered censorship response, which can be found full online on Jump Cut, thank you Julia Lesage, I do want to give a shout out to Chris Holland, the president of SCMS, a queer scholar of real importance and a supporter of AIDS scholarship more specifically, who interacted quite closely with me once she learned about the plight of our panel and this renegade The history of seeing and silencing, embrace and disdain, attention and disavowal have been definitive of both AIDS art and its discussion within and outside of academia. In fact, this was the intended topic of our muzzled panel. So now I begin with Richard Meyer, who writes, quote, Freud emphasizes the effects of censorship as both repressive and productive, unquote. Silence equals death, and silencing demands an AIDS act. It propels AIDS art. It always has. It still does. Annette Kuhn calls this the circuit of censorship. I thank the censor for this new framework which to gaze upon both the familiar, tired, and trying history, as well as a new body of documentary work about AIDS. When the programming committee decided not to include our workshop on today's schizophrenic visibility and silencing of AIDS, I understood this as a direct attack on me, my friends and colleagues, the dead, our history, and the very media movements and studies that we make and made in response. As days and weeks passed after learning of our panel's rejection, I didn't get less disturbed by time and distance, relaxing into their act, saying to myself, well, there are a lot of panels, and it wasn't personal. No, that's not how I felt. This kind of personal is only and very political. I became increasingly angry, mired as I was in a familiar abyss of disavowal, and then also more perplexed, given the specific history of silencing in regard to AIDS, AIDS media, that is and has been made specifically in the face of the silence. The predictability of this ritual of disavowal aggravated and even enraged me. While silencing is always harmful, the hurt of censorship in relation to AIDS, art, and analysis is formative, primal. Its pain is not rational. It's where we began. I am pulled back to the past, forcefully denied our history and future. I am returned to the closet, unheard. Our lives and loves, once again, unseen, disallowed. We are pulled back to the time when we were forced into action because our friends were sick, in pain, and dying. There was so much we couldn't say and show. So then, of course, we did. How we put condoms on penises, dental dams on vaginas, how we kiss, who we fuck, how we riot, who we want, how we mourn, how our lives are touched by racism, sexism, and homophobia before, during, and after AIDS, how once we were polite, and then we could no longer be. So here I enact what we most defiantly know about AIDS media and activism. We may not always have the power of institutions or even programmers on our side, but we always carry the truth of our experience and the righteousness of our analysis and the truth of our anger. I am a scholar and an activist, and I learned through AIDS activism and video the power of my voice when raised with others. The changing nature of institutional silencing has ensured a variety of strategic responses by video artists, their activist friends, and academic colleagues. Caught together in our circuit, the censor will ever strive to silence the same things that we are compelled to say. First, our attempts at providing life-saving AIDS education. Second, the images we make of our diverse lived experience of AIDS. Third, our critiques of the very institutions that disallow our representation and promote our invisibility. Fourth, our attempts to salvage, pass on, and learn from these histories, including histories of silencing. Given the omnipresence of the censor and her silencer and muzzle, we must ever navigate the extent to which we will be rude, shocking, abrasive, calming, loving, reductive, polite, or transgressive. I suggest that such responses to silencing have a four-part history. One that ends with some questions I will pose to you about our panel silencing by SCMS. These four periods, which I will briefly enumerate, are head on attack, head in the sand, heavy hearts in our hands, and history's handy demands. Period one, head on attack. In the 1980s,